being an art form that encompasses basically every single other art form means that a lot of what comes from gaming is actually pretty applicable to a greater artistic context. And one of the things I think that's probably the most sort of obvious way of approaching gaming without sitting down and playing it yourself is music performances. Now, I've not been lucky enough to have gone to any of these except for exactly one of them, which was for Journey, which was with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra back in 2015, I want to say. But I absolutely loved it. And Matt was saying that, actually, why am I saying what you're going to say, Matt, when I can just ask you to say it? You made a really good point in the chat before we started recording this. Explain.
I did.
I think
I
you
made a
said
good
say
point.
Yeah, like the would music that would work in a symphony, like what sound would we put our dapper evening suits on, risk home and sit in an auditorium to watch
Right.
real orchestra play? Because
No, I guess,
like you said, there's a lot of really good music that sounds shit as a symphony.
yeah,
Like,
I
it
mean,
just doesn't sound good.
it's just stuff that I wouldn't necessarily go to watch a performance of the music. So like if you go to a symphony, it's a little different. If you're playing a video game, then you've got the visuals and you've got the interactivity and all those other things. And the music's really there to enhance it, right? But if you go to a symphony, you're going specifically for the experience of the music. So it is very much front and center, and it can't be so much supporting something as it needs to be the kind of the main act. So there is a lot of music out there that I enjoy a lot, but I would not go to see in a symphony ever. Um, Probably the best example of that I can think of is the Mario Brothers games. I really enjoy the Mario Brothers music, but would I ever go to see it in a symphony? Probably not. Probably not.
that would be
Yeah,
cute,
exactly.
actually.
It'd be neat to. It's very kitsch.
Yeah, like maybe one song, but not the whole soundtrack.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
I
I
feel like
wouldn't
I
be
would want to hear one Mario Galaxy song, and that would
I
be
mean,
it.
there's a whole range of Mario music. You'd probably have that Ocean one, which everyone likes, in the 64 game.
I wouldn't be offended if
Um,
it was like a kind of a general kind of game music concert and there was like one Mario song in there. That wouldn't bother me. And I can't remember if it was. I did go to one symphony which was just a collection of music from video games across the spectrum. And I can't remember if there was a Mario in there. I'm pretty sure there was a Zelda track.
It came
And
out after the Zelda Symphony, didn't it? That was like a really big one, and it was like Halo and Call of Duty. I think there was like song like Mortal Kombat, maybe. I
Call of
didn't
Duty
go
has
to it, but
music.
yeah, it was a bunch of stuff
yeah,
like
it
that.
does. It's
Yeah.
actually got a decent soundtrack.
Wait, what?
which
Yeah,
one?
no, I'm not being Call of Duty. It has like a decent soundtrack. Like the Modern Warfare 1 theme is like
Well,
pretty renowned for being
they
quite
get
good.
the best they get the best music
Yeah,
composers in Hollywood to make the bloody music. So of course,
it's going to sound good.
I'm running an absolute blank right now. I don't know if it's because it's just mixed in a way that you can only hear gunfire. I can't imagine any music from that game.
Yeah, it's fine. Again, it's very like it's Michael Bay music,
Ah, okay,
and
okay,
that's kind
okay,
of what you expect. Like it's the
okay.
like that
Yeah.
sort of
It's
thing.
not
Which
like the
one-
GoldenEye menu music, which has taken a life on its own. Like
Which-
it's
which one was the Crisis one that had one of the top Hollywood composers create the original song
That was
for it?
Crisis 2, I believe. I think it was Crisis 2 or it was Crisis 3.
It was one of them, and it was a really good piece of music. For an otherwise
For a
pretty
game
poor
that was
game.
not particularly
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say Crisis has music. What are all these games that suddenly have music?
But yeah, to get back
And
to the
it-
point, I guess in terms of symphonies, there's one time that I've been to a symphony which was just for one game, and that was in Japan. We went to a symphony for Final Fantasy 14 music, which was, of course, excellent because a lot of that music is
I
very
feel like that's the
symphonic.
safest bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did they play Good King Mog?
They did not, and I was very disappointed about that. Actually, I was
That
going in
actually
saying,
surprises me.
are they going to play Good King Mog? Are they going to play? And they didn't. But it was a really good.
What they did to my boy.
But yeah, it was spectacular, and of course, any Final Fantasy game would work as a kind of separate or individual symphony.
I mean, they did that as like Distant Worlds, didn't they? That was the entire like Distant
Yeah,
Worlds
yeah.
thing for a
But
while.
I think across the franchise, there's so many iconic songs that you could fill multiple symphonies with it.
Well, yeah, there's 385 carefully selected songs to get through them.
Oh yeah, I'll get very acquainted with
So
those.
that is a very long symphony if you go along to that.
And all of them are from Final Fantasy Origin Stranger of Paradise.
Actually, you know what I would genuinely go to? I would genuinely go to a symphony which was just all the versions of the Chocobo song.
Nothing but Ride My
I think
Chocobo.
that's just you.
I would be the only person in the audience, but I would go. I actually have a CD of that, which is just like 22 versions of, or the 22 different versions of the Chocobo song.
Sounds like the soundtrack to my unraveling psyche.
It's a good CD. I
song
enjoyed it a
3.
great deal. But
This explains a lot about you.
No, I'm imagining you, Harvard, like, the scene from The Simpsons where Homer's like being force fed the donuts by the demon. He's like, have all the donuts you like. It's just you
Listen to
listening
every
to those
Chocobo song
Chocobo
ever made.
CDs.
And that's just there, like song 17 going like, oh, that's a pretty great song.
Yeah, I like that one. No, that's good. I like that a lot. That's really strong.
It's very funny.
I think one of the ones I would want to see the most of is it's ones that are not already symphonic, because I don't see a lot of point in hearing something that's already symphonic in the first place. I want to see someone do something interesting
Or like orchestrate
with music that I would. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of. I'm not going to say like ambition, because it sounds negative, but it shouldn't be. Like there's a lot of focus on making games seen as legitimate art, when sometimes like the best things are things that are made with games in mind and only in mind. And then to adapt that to a different medium, I think is more interesting in my personal opinion. Because like, whereas I can obviously see, going and listening to the entire FF10 soundtrack played by an orchestra, I would love that. But there's a part of me that's like, I kind of want to hear what they do with something that I never would have considered before. Like
what would you say?
Even like a chiptune game, like something that doesn't use the same instrumentation like at all, like that's using weird stuff,
or a symphony version of DDR.
You know what? No, actually, that would be kind of cool, because I would want to see how they do it, because that sounds insane, and I want to respect people who have like gone and done the effort of making something that sounds that insane.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
I would go to probably DJ sets of remixes. I think I love the Wave Racer aesthetic. There's an Australian musician whose name is literally Wave Racer, and he used to do a lot of sampling of like N64 era music in an electronic set, and that was very cool.
I really like that.
Kind of reminds me of stuff from like, did everyone used to like download music from like OC Remix? Like, like just all the video game music, and there was like some which are like more orchestrated like takes, and then there was some which are like just batshit insane like techno covers of like music. And it was just a great website with a resource of like some great artists.
Wonder if Overclock Remix is still a thing.
Fairly sure
I don't believe
it
is. I think it got shut down. I think it got shut down at some point, or like there was a big like copyright issue thing.
Oh yeah, I can imagine,
because of like Nintendo or some shit. Yeah. Because you remember that period of time where Nintendo went insane and just started copyright claiming literally everything because they could.
Still exists. Still goes to a website, so you can go to the website and find all the music.
That's good.
There you go. No, I think
it's nice that game music gives us the commonality, right? Because I feel like people who have played the game have that shared experience, so we go out seeking these songs, and it gives us that excitement when we see people doing things with that. I don't know if we have the same attachment to just music made for music, because we have additional stories and experiences that we associate with the music that was playing as it happened, which is pretty unique.
Yeah. I also, part of me wants to see someone try and adapt like the environmental music of something like Resident Evil 2 remake, where it's just like little piano clinks every so often. It's like a full like 3.5 hour symphony of just like ting. Like I want
Breath of the Wild, the symphony.
Yeah, just like have nothing, just like a wallpaper essentially, then the whole orchestra just occasionally making some noises, and then that's it. Like I would love that. That'd be cool as hell. It's like very Pomo.
Yeah, just imagine going to that concert and not knowing you're going to a video game concert, and you're just like, oh, there's a lot of artistic silence in this piece.
Well, because as we all know, Harvard, music is also the space between the notes.
It's really about the notes they're not playing.
Well,
You know, what do you think they're trying to convey in this you know, the silence between the piece and between the notes?
exactly.
You know what I really hate is going to be symphonies and it's like, oh, here's all the cool merch. Like, you know, you can get like some caps and posters and stuff like that. And you're like, sweet. None of them never do violin sheet music. It's always piano sheet music if it is sheet music. Why aren't
Do
they
you play the
orchestra?
violin track?
Yes, I kinda, not really, but
Oh,
I have
cool.
been.
There you go.
But yes, but
You
there's
realize
like
that you can
no
buy those and then
sheet
just like play the
Yeah.
top line, right? All you
Yeah,
can do
but
is do that.
I
You
don't
just,
know
like,
how to like transcode music. I just want it already transcoded for my instrument with the right things. Life's too complicated to do that.
This is
It's fun.
not the topic at all. So if anyone has a topic about music, jump in. But my question was more along the lines of, when you play games as if you're listening to a symphony, do you pay attention to the music and like analyze the music? Or does it kind of fade out
Yes.
into the background for you? You do?
Yes, I'm a psycho. Yeah, I have a degree in music.
Oh yeah, you have a degree in
If
music,
I-
of course.
Yeah, I listen to that stuff and I'm like, that's a nice diminished chord right there.
Well, specifically when I'm playing games, I actually want the music to fade back to the point where I'm not really noticing it. I mean, it should be good music and it should be recognizable to the point that, you know, if I hear it outside of the context of video games, then I recognize it. But while I'm playing the game, I would rather not be noticing the music. I'd rather it be there to enhance the rest of the game. And I think that's why, for example, one of my favorite game soundtracks is well, series as far as the music's concerned, is the Elder Scrolls series, because
Oh,
the music from the Elder Scrolls series, generally I don't really recognize it as I'm playing, but when I hear it outside of the context of video games, I can enjoy it on that level as well. So I can enjoy it in both ways. That when I'm playing the game, it's not in my face and it's not distracting me from the experience that I'm trying to, you know, read the books in the game or try and play, you know, go through a dungeon and kill dudes in the game or whatever. But then I can go to the symphony of an Elder Scrolls thing and really enjoy the music in that context as well. So for me, that's kind of the perfect example of a soundtrack that works.
It's like how Breath of the Wild is like the perfect video game soundtrack, but everyone's like, "Oh no, they're not playing the song constantly, or it's not loud enough. It's just wind chimes or whatever." But like, it just echoes in the background like a a mystical like force or some sort of a Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. That's my problem with some of the older Zelda soundtracks, is that some of the songs are really infuriating to listen to for an hour at a time. So if you're stuck in a dungeon, you're getting to know that song real well.
Oh, the forest one from Ocarina of Time.
Stuck in my head. It makes me think of like an owl that's like trapped.
And it's like, it's not a bad
owl.
song, right? It's just not a song you want to listen to over and over again.
I don't want to listen to a man going like a clown. This is a clown screaming in my ear, and it's very upsetting.
I love Wind Waker. It had some great music. Like, all the islands had like amazing pieces, like, Dragon Roast Island. That was really, really, really good. And Outset Island had a really good soundtrack. Yeah.
I think like over the course of video game history, they've started to figure out that. So a lot of the things tend towards more ambient stuff. Like a lot of people complain how there's no melodies in modern music, but I think that's by the design. Like they don't want to have really catchy melodies all the time because that's not what it's there for.
Unless
the only one that I would say is aggressively. Oh, go for it. Sorry, man.
I was going to say, unless it's actually specifically they want to use that as an aesthetic effect, like the Persona series, for example.
Yeah. But even Persona games have ambient music, and then when they want you to remember the song, they'll put more effort into it, right? Not
they
effort,
have
like
ambient
more
music,
pizzazz into it.
they have ambient music. Like Persona 4 and 5 are just back-to-back pop music.
Oh, but like if you're going like on the train or if you're in the cafe or something, there's like more
Oh
chill
yeah,
music as well.
yeah, that's true.
I was also going to say the only game that I think has had aggressive melody work in it series rather, is Xenoblade, because they write pieces of music that are like half an hour long so that you don't get bored of them,
That's true too.
which I
I
have
love that
big respect
Xenoblade.
for.
They mastered the whole "Why do I hear boss music" meme.
Yeah. Yeah, you turn around and there's like a 70 level 70,000 monkey called Tempestuous Greg who's screaming at you.
Tempestuous Greg. That's probably a real name for him.
And it's
I
not
also
that far away, yeah.
my favorite thing from that soundtrack too, and I love it when boss soundtracks do this, is the first minute or so is just like, you're gonna die, this is gonna be so scary. And then minute 2 and minute 3 suddenly gets really triumphant because the game knows if you're still hearing this bit, you're probably doing pretty well.
You're fine. Yeah. I like that. I think there's a element of big risk to that though, because for a musician to make a 15-minute piece of music for a battle song, the first minute has to be phenomenal. Like it
Because
has
you're
to
gonna hear
be.
that one, yeah. That's the thing, you're
Yeah,
gonna hear it over
exactly.
and over
It's
again.
again not to just talk about Xenoblade, but Torna, the DLC for Xenoblade, has the single best battle theme of all time. You don't hear a lot of it, but it is jazzy, it is fun, and it's so sick. I never heard past like the 4-minute mark. I just think there's a lot of limits with music in games, and I think that symphony is not necessarily the way to do it all the time, but it'd be cool to see how it could be adapted to include elements of that, which is that's a very bland and fence-sitting argument to make.
Well, I think it's obviously depends on the genre as well, right? So if you're playing an RPG, it probably lends itself better to symphonic style compositions than if you're playing a fighting game where the
I would dig a symphonic fight again, actually. That'd be
the
cool.
the fight's over in less than a minute, and it's more about creating energy. Like the music's there to create energy, and that's why it's fast guitar riffs and stuff. So yeah, and then a platformer like Mario, again, Symphony probably doesn't work for Mario anyway, because it's more about creating that kind of light, kind of bouncy spirit. So yeah, the genre matters a great deal as well.
Yeah, what's interesting is that Galaxy for the Mario series does have a symphonic soundtrack, and it has a reputation for being a wistful and thoughtful game. I think primarily because of that soundtrack.
Yeah, I think so. I also think that game just has one of the best soundtracks of all time, just because it's so varied, it's so interesting, and you can tell they're having fun with it. I think that's the main thing, is that I have this fear, right, that any piece of art that's created under extreme pressure and stress, isn't as good as if it was just someone having fun with it.
Yeah.
And soundtracks where
The
you can
games
tell they're
industry.
having fun. Yeah, exactly. Like when you can tell that someone is having fun writing and having fun performing it, like the Mario Kart 8 soundtrack is just joy.
Mm.
And it's because you can tell that every single musician on that staff was having a blast, just having fun. And I think the way the industry is doing, everything's back to a socioeconomic thing. Everything comes back to crunch, and I think musicians are often not given enough time. I mean, you look at the Doom soundtrack guy who got absolutely screwed over by Bethesda.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
he
Yeah.
got like that sort of thing. That concerns me, because the soundtrack for Doom Eternal is good, but it could have been so much better if he'd been given the tools and the time to actually do what he wanted to do.
Yeah, and that's a game that would really be enhanced by music as well. But I think the attitude towards music is just get everyone to make the whole rest of the game first, and then give some poor musician and composer 2 weeks and be like, okay, soundtrack it. We don't care how you do
Well,
it.
I mean,
Yeah,
they do the same to the writing as well.
yeah,
That
exactly.
the game's basically done, and then they get a writer in
yeah.
to say,
It's like, make it make sense.
make it make sense. So
Make the scenario.
I do find that a lot of the creative work in games is an afterthought to the production, which is it is an issue. I do think that is a big issue for the video game industry, and one of the reasons that I do prefer more indie stuff, because a lot of the time the indies actually go in with the creative idea first and then build the game around it. Whereas, you know, the Ubisoft formula or whatever doesn't really work that way. You're only going to be able to, you're only going to be able to produce a game of the scope of an Assassin's Creed or a Grand Theft Auto or whatever if you build the game first and then make it work as a creative product, because building the game is that much, you know, more work.
God, I cannot think of a single Ubisoft game that I'm remotely interested in at this point. Like,
I mean, they're all
it's so just
cancelled, aren't they?
artistically devoid.
Yeah, they're all
cancelled.
cancelled
They
anyway.
should be.
They tried for a little bit.
There was a
Yeah, and they
period
failed.
there where Ubisoft was a top tier publisher in my view.
Yeah, Valiant Hearts.
Well, they
You
were
know,
doing
that
all kinds
Child
of
of Light
interesting
era.
things. Child of Light era, they were, and their bigger games were interesting as well. Like the Assassin's Creed series peaked for me around the 3 trilogy, Black Flag and Rogue and Liberation.
Oh, Black Flag was sick.
So-
Liberation also the most underrated one.
Yeah, exactly. And they were pretty creative and interesting works. That was just before the series got big, and then they went and messed it from there. So there was a moment where Ubisoft was a very fine game publisher.
And Rabbids Go Home is like the best game. Like everyone should like get a Wii and play it.
It's the
Like-
most like I rented this game from Blockbuster DVD. Like that's the energy of that game for some reason. I don't know why, but it just is to me.
No, it's great. It's got like
They
the
go
animated
home.
TV show came out at the same time, like or around just after it, and it's got that energy.
It was a
and
TV show?
Yeah, there's a TV show. I think it's like I think
Oh.
it's a newer property. I don't think it was like it's there was like short clips around then, but then the actual TV show came out more recently. But like there was like energy and vibes of like something like that. I think it even had like didn't Go Home also have like the people which worked on the TV show working on it, like the Wallace and Gromit people as well. Like I'm pretty sure it had I'm pretty sure it had some creative influences and like people helping out. Like
Are you telling me that Aardman Studios worked on a Rabbids thing?
I'm sure they helped with like the either the TV show or Go Home. Like they did something with Rabbids.
I don't think so.
Are you thinking of the
You Google.
Oh
you
my
Google
god,
it
you're
right
right.
now.
Oh my god.
I am right.
my God.
Yes.
What the What?
I don't think so. do they?
No, they did. They did. They worked on a pilot and a few episodes.
Oh, there you go.
Oh
Yeah.
my
So
god.
that was back when Go Home had came out. So all that pilot and stuff like that. Like it was like it was the energy and the vibe of like Ubisoft back then. Like Ubi art was a thing. Like the best Rayman games are those 2D Rayman games. Don't tell me it's the 3D games. It's those 2D games. Best content ever. And then you also
the
have Valiant
conversation on that
Hearts.
topic. Actually, I'm really
Like Child
curious
of
for your
Light.
thoughts on this. What's
Yeah.
your view on getting an existing creative in their field to hop on a game? Like, what's your view on like George R.R. Martin is writing Elden Ring? Or like,
He didn't.
It made Elden Ring better.
He did not.
or like
They-
famous music composer is doing the soundtrack.
They-
or like,
So here's what, like Harvard, I'm just going to clear this up here because this is, I'm 100% sure, convinced that 100% certain this is what happened, right? George R.R. Martin liked Dark Souls, and he was like, I want to write the next one. So Miyazaki is like, here, you can do that. We'll put your name on the box, and it's okay, George. You've really written this, and they didn't use any of it. They just,
Maybe. It's all in like the item text. He did all the
and
item coding
now
and shit
George
like
is
that, right?
wandering around saying, I wrote this game. I'm so great.
That's so funny.
I'm so happy with myself, and
imagine just
none of his
giving
works
George
in
R.R.
there.
Martin like the courtesy credit.
So that's
That
what
one
happened. there.
definitely
you know what
seems
it is?
all
It's like-
marketing. it's not an
It's
actual
when you,
like he made it.
When you give your younger cousin the controller that's not plugged in, but for writing a video game.
But to your question, Harvard, when it works, it's really great. Like Ni no Kuni, for example, in the way they use
So
Studio
good.
Ghibli, and
Oh,
also
yeah.
Joe
Hisaishi, Joe
Yeah,
Hisaishi. Hisaishi, yeah.
the composer
King.
for the music. That game was just spectacular for the way that it was that collaboration between a game developer and somebody from outside of the games industry. It doesn't happen as often as I was like. Too often it is just one of those things that it seems to be a branding exercise, or if for the studio or whoever outside of the games industry got recruited into it, it's just a way of making a bit of money on the side, but it's not their kind of top tier effort. Like, for example, I would imagine the Rabbids work that Aardman did was not their finest, and
No, they had the models left over from the Wallace and Gromit Curse the Were-Rabbit movie.
yeah. So for me, that's where it kind of falls down. Too often it seems like it's just a marketing exercise, and it's not something
But
that's
Alan didn't know
genuine.
about it, so doesn't count.
I
Might
didn't
have
know
been the
about
best
it.
work.
And that's the thing that gets me, is that is targeted to me because it came out in 2010. That would have been my shit in 2010. I had no idea. That's wild. I guess I never really did come home.
But I think the other thing is it's too often the people from outside of the games industry don't necessarily know how to work within the games industry as well. So they need to be quite guided in order to make their stuff fit. And I think a lot of the time, again, to go back to the branding thing and George R.R. Martin, I think a lot of the time they just try and find some way of kind of indulging them within the games industry, within the game that they're making. So in all seriousness, I believe what George contributed to Elden Ring was the backstory.
Yeah. It was the backstory and the item descriptions that he helped to contribute to.
Yeah, so he did the stuff that's kind of way in the background, and then the bulk of the actual writing would have come from Miyazaki's team.
Yeah.
So in that way, they found a way of squeezing him in as such. Another example would be, this is an older example, but Clock Tower 3, back on the PlayStation 2, had
with
a
the director,
very famous film director involved in the project. It was actually his last project before he died. Kinji Fukasaku, I believe his name was. He was the director of Battle.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the director of Battle Royale and so many very famous films through the 60s and 70s. He was brought on.
The game's so weird.
He was, yeah, he's a visionary kind of filmmaker. So it was not a small deal that he was involved with that game. And his role within it, as it turned out, was really just kind of directing the cinematics. He didn't have creative oversight to the rest of the project. So yeah, I do feel a lot of the time when they get somebody from outside the games industry for a particular talent, writing, filmmaking, music, whatever, they then just kind of, it's an indulgence to kind of, and they just try and make it fit where it can without it actually being that deeply ingrained within the rest of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's to add validity to a non-gaming market.
Yeah,
because I mean, you show a game that has George R.R. Martin's name on it after Game of Thrones came out, like it's gonna sell. You have a game that, like, you know, has I don't know, Hans Zimmer's name on it, it's probably gonna sell. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where if you have someone who is famous outside of gaming attached to your game, it's going to appeal to more people who are not likely to already be buying it anyway. So, yeah.
It's very cynical, but I guess accurate. Look at that.
Yeah, everything's a market. I did one marketing subject at uni. I'm an expert now.